Hello. I've virtually got the whole team of Clausematch around the table today, at least the virtual table.
Hi.
How are you doing? You all good?
Hi, Cohen. Very good. Thank you.
Nice to hear that. I'd like to thank you all for this wonderful contribution in the new RegTech book, the sequel. And what I really liked about your contribution is that it was the three of you. And all three of you had all the same theme, but still a different message. So if I may ask, what was the reason, or why did you decide to come with the three of you?
Well, I guess I'll start. I'll start answering, and then I'm sure my team will join. We had so much we wanted to share, and so many news and updates, and it felt like we could contribute from all three of us a lot of really interesting information that we just wanted to share with the readers. And it spans different areas, different angles, but it's all about what's happening to RegTech and what has happened to RegTech in the period of COVID. So those last 18 months of interesting experience for all of us, and we just want to put it on the paper.
No, absolutely. It has been a quite interesting time. And when reading the article or the chapter, you guys often refer to as mapping. You say there is a mapping that has to be done to evolve. What would that mean?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So with mapping, the idea is that there's some kind of connection or some kind of way of bringing a relation between what the public expects of heavily regulated organizations, particularly financial services organizations, understanding that and taking those and codifying those into entities, so sort of locations, if you will, on a kind of map, and linking those to points in an organization, points of evidence, and points of the organization that are responsible for or subject to those regulations, finding a way to establish the relation, describe the relation between those. So it's super important to do that in a way that's very considered and involves technical capabilities as well as the way that we've been doing it up to now.
Oh, that's true. It also sounds like that collaboration between the various lines of defense, and that regulation often has been seen as too much one direction. And now what you're saying is, you say disseminate, bring it within the organization so everyone understands. Is it in that direction that I'll need to see it?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things in my part of the article is I talked about the generation of different regulatory subjects. So parts of an organization, whether they're individuals or departments or legal entities, that can be responsible or targeted by a regulation, right? Since those are kind of expanding and multiplying, what you find is that the people responsible are no longer simply like in a particular department that is responsible for dealing with regulatory matters. For example, senior managers in first-line functions are becoming more responsible directly and personally in some circumstances for compliance with regulation. And so that mapping can't just be linked to a legal entity or to a department or a product even. For example, it can be linked to a person or a role.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe Anastasia, because you said you had to leave us in a couple of minutes. I think your part was also about COVID. You just mentioned it, right? So how did you personally experience COVID as a professional, right? As working for one of those new scaling RegTechs globally? How did you feel? What was particularly on that period of time?
No, it's a great question, and it actually kind of does tie in back to the conversation with Nick around mapping and linking. So for as COVID started, all of the organizations, including ours, had to adjust to new ways of working, right? Different ways of working, going remote. And look at us now, 18 months into it, we're so good at this now. This is becoming very, very natural. So it was really interesting from my point of view, and that's also something that I talked about in the article in the book. Working through adjusting to the new ways of working, appreciating that people are going remote, and looking at how can we as a RegTech organization continue delivering solutions and servicing our clients. And for us, it was quite an interesting experience because we actually ended up launching a number of new modules and solutions for our clients. We grew our client base from 2,000 users to about 200,000 users. We saw massive adoption of our collaboration tool because our organizations or clients suddenly realized that they are no longer sitting in the same room talking to each other about what needs to change, how, and the policies that they're managing in a platform around business continuity, disaster recovery, transaction monitoring, trading, right? All of those things had to be updated to reflect the conditions that COVID brought in. And all of that had to be communicated to all of those hundreds and thousands of employees that are no longer coming to an office. So it's really interesting to kind of see how COVID impacted us as an organization, how we needed to adapt, but also to observe how our clients are adapting and how they are truly realizing the power and the value of the RegTech solutions and compliance solutions of the modern, the more innovative solutions available in the market. So that embracing of technology and recognizing how important it is to have all of those tools in a new world.
I must say, I love your passionate answer, because a lot of the big fours, they talk about it and they make those nice blogs about digitalization, has really took a leap of faith that it went very fast, but this making it really practical. And I can understand that, yeah, not only you, but more in RegTech in general, that it has been an accelerator for RegTech. I agree with you. But it is almost like reforming, right? And when you guys speak about reforming, you come with subject, obligation, and evidence. Could you enlighten us a little bit also on those three words and those steps that you actually foresee?
Yeah, I'll have a go at that one. So what I was trying to get to with that kind of taxonomy, or this sort of breaking down of the problem into elements, was I was thinking about what it means to say you're compliant with something, right? To be compliant. And the kind of conclusion I'm drawing is that it's not so much a state, or at least it's not so much a place you can be, I think I wrote, so much as it is an analysis or a conclusion drawn from all sorts of different events that are happening across an entity every day, every moment, right? When you say you are compliant, what you're probably saying then is along the lines of, based on our interpretation of what the public expects of us and the evidence that we have to bear against those expectations, we're within the level of comfort that we can say we're meeting what they intend us to meet and what the expectation of the public happens to be. So breaking that down into subject being who it is that is responsible for complying with the obligation. The obligation being what is the substantive requirement in terms of an outcome or a process required by the public. And then breaking it down that way really helps you to understand a bit better. Like, it's not just a state that you can say yes or no. There's so much that goes into
granular
analysis and interpretation. Yeah.
Interesting. And yeah, maybe to come to the last chapter of the book, in which you came to a conclusion, and I think many of us already came to that conclusion, but you articulated this very well. It's not about, or it's more than just the regulation. It's also the regulation that should be adapted to a new age. What do you mean exactly? I mean, it's clear for me because I've been reading the book, obviously, but how would you explain it in a couple of words? And what's the vision that you guys share at Clausematch?
Yeah, I'll take that one. But in terms of the vision for Clausematch and generally for regulatory markets, we have seen a huge problem brought to us by our clients, and that is how do we collect all of the regulations which are applicable to us around the world and digitize them in a structured form so we can actually use the regulatory text for showcasing that we're compliant, for mapping those obligations which are imposed on us by regulators to our policy and procedures, to our controls, to our people, products, entities, and so on. And that's what kind of Mick talked about in his section of the book. But the 10-year vision is that in 10 years, regulators will not be publishing regulations in a PDF on their website because it's just not sustainable. With regulations increasing and then growing and pretty much, affecting every single industry in the world, it becomes impossible to get, the entire regulatory text that applies to you. So, our vision and the reason why we wanted to bring it through the book as well is that regulators really need to start using technology to publish those regulations in a digital form, in a structured form. And at Clausematch, we're hoping to help regulators to get there. And the work that Anastasia and the team have done with Abu Dhabi Global Markets and their financial regulator just shows that the technology is available today, and we can bring regulators very quickly to that world where they can make a change and publish that change in a digital form, which will propagate directly to the regulated entities and their systems and show them where they're impacted by that change.
That's literally the move into STP, right?
Yeah,
if you and it definitely takes takes a couple to tango, because I agree that the regulator is at stake here. I mean, they are the one that should take the next step, and it's yet another translation of supervisory technology, but in fact using technology, but it's to play out the bigger picture.
I love the tango analogy. That's so spot on, actually. It's great.
Thank you.
Koen, I have to leave, unfortunately, but I hope that readers enjoyed the book and enjoy the story that we were able to share. And thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. Maybe before we go for the rest of the audience, I'm also interested, like you talked a lot about what Clausematch does. But if you would put it in a 10-second pitch, why should people contact you? Organization, which type of organization, and for what reason?
Yeah, it should be any organization which has got a type of compliance that they need to comply with. We work with global banks, we work with smaller fintech companies, payment companies, insurance. But also we're starting to work with tech companies which have cybersecurity compliance, which have data privacy compliance, because compliance really is a process of managing content, managing compliance content, managing policies and procedures, and then communicating that content to their employees. With Clausematch, we enable to communicate that content and always make sure that that content is compliant with the actual obligations which are applicable to an organization.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm sure you're happy to hear that also within the book, there's some more writing about the fact that RegTech is getting beyond the financial industry. And I totally agree with you, because at the end of the day, it's the same, right? You get regulations. It's no different in the food industry, the showbiz industry. There's so many other industries that you can call up to that it's pretty much the same. Good. guys, I'd like to thank you so much again for your contribution in the book, also for having this nice conversation with you. It's great to see you, although I would love this to be a real conversation, but this is what we'll need to deal with lately. But thank you so much again. And yeah, for the listeners, I hope you enjoyed this session also. And just know that there are more of these sessions in the YouTube channel. So feel free to follow us, to like us, to share, and maybe also to listen to the other conversations. So thank you very much, and looking forward to meet you all in person.
Thank you, Colin. And hope everyone enjoys the book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.